Maya Chen had always believed her biggest problem was choosing between vanilla or chocolate ice cream at the campus cafeteria. As a 22-year-old international relations student at Seoul National University, her days were filled with textbooks, part-time shifts at a local bookstore, and video calls with her parents back in California. She lived in a cramped studio apartment in Hongdae, surviving on instant ramen and the occasional treat from her favorite corner bakery. The autumn semester had just begun when everything changed. Maya was rushing across the university courtyard, her arms full of heavy textbooks and her messenger bag sliding off her shoulder, when she collided with someone coming around the corner. Books scattered across the concrete like autumn leaves, and Maya found herself on the ground, looking up at the most elegantly dressed woman she had ever seen. The woman appeared to be around Maya's age, but everything about her screamed expensive sophistication. Her long black hair fell in perfect waves over a cream-colored cashmere coat that probably cost more than Maya's entire semester tuition. Diamond earrings caught the sunlight, and her makeup was flawless despite the early morning hour. But it was her eyes that struck Maya the most, dark, intelligent, and studying her with an intensity that made Maya feel like she was being evaluated for something important. "I'm so sorry," Maya stammered in Korean, scrambling to gather her books. "I wasn't watching where I was going." The woman didn't immediately respond. Instead, she crouched down gracefully and began helping Maya collect her scattered materials. Her movements were precise and deliberate, like someone accustomed to being watched. When she handed Maya her international law textbook, their fingers touched briefly, and Maya noticed the woman's perfectly manicured nails and the subtle scent of expensive perfume. "Maya Chen," the woman said, reading the name from the textbook's cover. Her voice was smooth and cultured, speaking Korean with an accent that suggested expensive private education. "American Korean, studying international relations, lives alone in Hongdae district." Maya froze. The way this stranger recited personal details about her life sent a chill down her spine. "How do you know all that?" The woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "My name is Yoon Seoyeon, and I've been looking for someone exactly like you." Before Maya could ask what that meant, Seoyeon stood and brushed invisible dust from her coat. She reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a business card. Thick, expensive paper with elegant calligraphy. "Meet me at Cafe Luna tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Come alone." "Wait, I don't understand." But Seoyeon was already walking away, her heels clicking against the concrete with military precision. Maya watched her disappear into a sleek black sedan that had been waiting at the curb, complete with a driver who opened and closed the door for her. That evening, Maya couldn't concentrate on her studies. She kept turning the business card over in her hands. It was blank except for Seoyeon's name and a phone number. No company name, no address, no indication of what kind of business this mysterious woman might be involved in. When Maya Googled the name, she found nothing except social media accounts showing someone who attended exclusive parties, traveled to expensive destinations, and never seemed to work a regular job. Maya's best friend Jimin laughed when she told him about the encounter the next day over lunch in the university cafeteria. "She probably wants you to model for some fashion brand," he said, stealing a piece of her kimbap. "You know how these rich kids are, always looking for the next exotic face for their parents' businesses." But Maya wasn't so sure. There had been something calculating in Seoyeon's gaze, something that suggested this was about more than modeling or business opportunities. Still, curiosity got the better of her. At exactly 3 o'clock the following day, she found herself standing outside Cafe Luna, a upscale establishment in Gangnam that she normally couldn't afford to enter. The cafe was nearly empty in the mid-afternoon lull. Seoyeon sat at a corner table, partially hidden by a large potted plant. She had traded her university courtyard elegance for something even more striking, A black dress that probably cost more than Maya's rent, paired with jewelry that caught the light every time she moved. She wasn't alone. Two men in expensive suits sat at nearby tables, trying to look casual but failing completely. Maya had watched enough movies to recognize bodyguards when she saw them. Her survival instinct screamed at her to leave, but Seoyeon had already spotted her and was waving her over with a smile that seemed genuinely warm for the first time. "Maya, I'm so glad you came. Please, sit." Maya slid into the chair across from her, acutely aware of how out of place she looked in her thrift store jeans and university sweater. "Who are you, really?" Seoyeon ordered them both coffee, expensive imported beans that Maya had never heard of, before answering. "I told you. My name is Yoon Seoyeon." "That doesn't answer my question." For the first time, Seoyeon's composed exterior cracked slightly. She glanced toward one of her bodyguards, then back at Maya. "My father is in business. Import and export. Very successful, but also very demanding of his family." Maya had lived in Korea long enough to recognize careful wording when she heard it. "What kind of import and export?" "The kind that requires discretion." Seoyeon's fingers drummed against the table. "Maya, I'm going to be honest with you because I think you're smart enough to handle the truth. My father leads an organization that operates outside traditional legal boundaries. He's built an empire that spans multiple countries and industries, and he has very specific expectations for his daughter." The words hung in the air between them. Maya felt her mouth go dry. "You're talking about organized crime." "I'm talking about family business." Seoyeon's voice remained steady, but Maya caught a flash of something, fear, resignation, in her eyes. "And my father has decided it's time for me to marry someone who can help expand his operations into international markets." Maya nearly choked on her coffee. "What does that have to do with me?" "Everything." Seoyeon leaned forward, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "The marriage has been arranged with the son of a rival organization. A merger, essentially. But I've managed to convince my father that I need an American assistant, someone to help me navigate international business customs and serve as a cultural liaison. I still don't understand. I need someone my father will trust, but who isn't part of his world. Someone clean, with no connections to any criminal organizations. Someone who looks innocent enough that business rivals won't see them as a threat." Seoyeon's eyes locked onto Maya's. "I need someone exactly like you." Maya pushed back from the table. "You want me to work for your family, knowing what they do?" "I want you to work for me. There's a difference." "Is there?" Seoyeon was quiet for a long moment, stirring her coffee with unnecessary precision. "My father controls every aspect of my life. Who I see, where I go, what I study, who I'm going to marry. The only freedom I have is in choosing my own staff. It's a small victory, but it's mine." There was something vulnerable in Seoyeon's voice that Maya hadn't expected. Despite the expensive clothes and bodyguards, despite the casual mention of organized crime, Seoyeon sounded like what she was, a young woman trapped in circumstances beyond her control. "What would this job actually involve?" "Officially? You'd be my personal assistant and cultural advisor. You'd help me with English correspondence, attend business meetings as my interpreter, accompany me to social events." Seoyeon paused. "Unofficially? You'd be the one person in my life who isn't reporting back to my father or trying to use me to gain access to his organization." Maya thought about her empty bank account, her mountain of student loan debt, her part-time job that barely covered rent and food. The smart thing would be to walk away. The safe thing would be to politely decline and never see Yoon Seoyeon again. "How much does it pay?" Seoyeon smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. "More than you've ever made in your life." plus housing in my family's compound, meals, transportation, and medical coverage. All you have to do is sign a confidentiality agreement and be willing to relocate immediately. Relocate where? My family has homes in Seoul, Busan, Tokyo, and Los Angeles. You'd travel with me wherever business requires. Seoyeon pulled out a contract from her bag. Clearly, she had been confident Maya would be interested. The position starts immediately and includes a signing bonus of $50,000 American. Maya stared at the contract. $50,000 was more money than she had ever seen at once. It would pay off her student loans, help her parents with their mortgage, and still leave enough to secure her future. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she was signing away more than just her time. What about my studies? You can continue them remotely or transfer to universities near wherever we're based. My father values education. He'll ensure you have access to the best schools. Maya picked up the contract, scanning the legal language. It was surprisingly straightforward for something involving a criminal organization. Generous salary, comprehensive benefits, and a confidentiality clause that was strict but not threatening. What caught her attention was a small clause near the bottom. Either party could terminate the agreement with 30 days' notice, no questions asked. Why me? Maya asked. Really? You could hire anyone. Seoyeon was quiet for so long that Maya wondered if she was going to answer. Finally, she spoke. Because when you fell and scattered your books, you immediately apologized and started cleaning up the mess. You didn't wait for someone else to fix the problem or blame anyone else for what happened. And when I helped you, you said thank you and looked me in the eye instead of staring at my clothes or jewelry. She paused, glancing toward her bodyguards. Most people in my world only see what they can get from each other. You saw a person who helped you pick up your books. Maya realized that Seoyeon had been testing her from the very beginning. The collision hadn't been an accident. It had been an evaluation. How long have you been watching me? Long enough to know that you're exactly what I need. Seoyeon reached across the table and touched Maya's hand gently. I know this is overwhelming. I know it sounds dangerous and complicated. But I promise you, all I want is someone I can trust. Someone who will see me as more than just my father's daughter or a tool in his business empire. There was something desperate in Seoyeon's voice that made Maya's heart ache. She thought about her own family, loving but distant, supportive but unable to understand her dreams of living independently in a foreign country. At least she had chosen her own path, even if it was difficult. Seoyeon seemed to have no choice in anything. If I say yes, when would I start? Tonight. My driver will pick you up at 8 o'clock with a car full of boxes to help you pack your apartment. By tomorrow morning, you'll be living in my family's Seoul compound. Maya's head spun. That's very fast. My father doesn't like to wait once decisions are made. Maya looked around the cafe, at the other customers going about their normal lives, unaware that a criminal organization's daughter was recruiting her new assistant 20 feet away. In a few hours, she could be part of that world, well paid, well protected, but forever changed. I need to know something first, Maya said. What happens if I want to quit? Then you quit. The contract includes a generous severance package and transportation back to wherever you want to go. Your confidentiality agreement remains in effect, but otherwise, you're free to leave whenever you choose. Seoyeon stood up, clearly preparing to leave regardless of Maya's answer. I don't need your decision right now. Think about it tonight. If you decide yes, be ready when my driver arrives. If you decide no, throw away my business card and forget we ever met. She walked toward the exit, her bodyguards falling into step behind her. At the door, she turned back to Maya one final time. For what it's worth, I hope you say yes. I think we could be good friends. Then she was gone, leaving Maya alone with a lukewarm cup of expensive coffee and a decision that would change everything. That evening, Maya sat in her tiny apartment, staring at the contract and thinking about her conversation with Seoyeon. She called her parents, careful not to mention anything about organized crime, and told them she might have an opportunity for a high-paying job that would require travel. "It sounds wonderful, honey," her mother said. "You've been working so hard, and you deserve something that pays better than that bookstore." Maya also called Jimin, who was less enthusiastic. "This sounds like the beginning of a very bad movie," he said. "Rich, mysterious woman, bodyguards, immediate relocation. Maya, this has red flags all over it." "But what if it's legitimate? What if it's exactly what she says it is? And what if it isn't?" Maya didn't have an answer for that. She spent the evening researching everything she could find about the Yoon family, but information was scarce. There were mentions of successful businesses, charitable donations, and social events, but nothing concrete about illegal activities. Either they were very good at keeping secrets, or Maya was worrying about nothing. At 7:30, she made her decision. She packed her most important belongings into 2 suitcases, left a note for her landlord, and sat by the window watching for a black car. At exactly 8 o'clock, the sedan pulled up outside her building. The same driver who had picked up Seoyeon from the university got out and rang her doorbell. "Miss Chen, I'm here to collect you." Maya took one last look around her small apartment, the place where she had struggled and survived and slowly built a life for herself. Tomorrow, she would wake up in a world she knew nothing about, working for people whose business operated in shadows. But she would also wake up with more money than she had ever had, more opportunities than she had ever imagined, and maybe, if Seoyeon was telling the truth, her first real friend in Seoul. Maya picked up her suitcases and walked out the door. The Yoon family compound was nothing like Maya had expected. Instead of a dark, fortress-like mansion from movies, she found herself in front of an elegant modern estate nestled in the hills outside Seoul. The main house was a masterpiece of glass and steel architecture, surrounded by perfectly manicured gardens and connected to several smaller buildings by covered walkways. Security cameras were discreetly hidden among the landscaping, and Maya noticed at least 6 different men who looked like bodyguards positioned around the property. Seoyeon met Maya at the main entrance, having changed into casual designer jeans and a silk blouse that probably cost more than Maya's former monthly rent. "Welcome to your new home," she said, gesturing toward the impressive structure. "I know it's a lot to take in." Maya followed her through the front doors into a spacious foyer with marble floors and abstract art that she was fairly certain belonged in a museum. Everything was immaculately clean and precisely arranged, giving the impression of a place where nothing was ever out of order. "Your rooms are in the East Wing," Seoyeon explained as they walked through corridors lined with expensive artwork. "You'll have a bedroom, private bathroom, sitting area, and small kitchenette. Complete privacy, but close enough that I can find you when I need you." They passed several closed doors, and Maya caught glimpses of what appeared to be offices, conference rooms, and spaces that looked more business-oriented than residential. The compound was clearly more than just a family home. It was the headquarters of an empire. Maya's new living space was larger than her previous apartment and furnished with items that spoke of careful attention to comfort and style. Floor-to-ceiling windows provided views of the gardens, and Maya noticed that they were also bulletproof glass. "The kitchenette is stocked with basics," Seoyeon said, opening cabinets to show Maya where everything was located. "But you're welcome to eat in the main kitchen or dining room any time. The household staff will prepare whatever you'd like." "Household staff?" "Cook, housekeepers, gardener, maintenance crew, plus security, obviously." Seoyeon sat on the edge of the bed, watching Maya explore her new surroundings. "Maya, I want you to understand something important. This house has rules, but they're mainly about security and privacy. You're not a prisoner here. You're not a servant. You're my assistant and my friend, and I want you to feel comfortable." Maya touched the expensive bedding, still struggling to believe this was real. What exactly will my responsibilities be? Tomorrow I have 3 business meetings that require English translation. Next week, we're flying to Los Angeles for a conference with some of my father's American partners. In 2 weeks, I have a charity gala where I'll need someone to help me navigate conversations with international donors. Seoyeon pulled out an iPad and scrolled through what appeared to be a detailed calendar. Most of your work will be legitimate business assistance. The complicated part is understanding what you're not seeing. What do you mean? Seoyeon was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. My father's organization operates many legitimate businesses: shipping, real estate, technology, restaurants. But some of their activities exist in legal gray areas or cross lines completely. As my assistant, you'll sometimes be present for conversations that touch on these topics. The most important part of your job is knowing when to listen and when to pretend you didn't hear anything. Maya felt a chill run through her. You want me to ignore criminal activity? I want you to understand that survival in this world requires careful choices about what you notice and what you don't. My father's men will test you. They'll say things in your presence to see how you react, whether you ask questions, whether you gossip with other staff. Seoyeon stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the gardens where several security personnel were stationed. The safest response is always polite professionalism and strategic ignorance. That first night, Maya lay awake in her luxurious new bed, wondering what she had gotten herself into. The house was eerily quiet except for the soft sounds of security personnel making their rounds. She thought about calling Jimin or her parents, but realized she couldn't explain her situation without revealing information covered by her confidentiality agreement. The next morning, Maya woke to find that someone had delivered appropriate business attire to her room, several outfits in her exact size, all designer brands that fit perfectly. When she asked Seoyeon about it over breakfast, she just smiled and said, "I told you my father values professionalism." Maya's first day of work was a series of controlled revelations about the scope of the Yoon family's influence. The morning meeting was with representatives from a Seoul hotel chain who wanted to discuss expansion opportunities. Maya provided translation services and took notes, trying to ignore the fact that some of the conversation seemed to involve cash payments that wouldn't appear on any official records. The afternoon brought a video conference with partners in Tokyo, where Maya found herself translating discussions about shipping routes that seemed to prioritize avoiding certain ports and customs inspections. When she glanced at Seoyeon during one particularly suspicious exchange, she received a subtle headshake that clearly meant, "Don't ask questions." By the end of her first week, Maya had developed a routine that felt surprisingly normal despite its unusual circumstances. She woke up in luxury, attended business meetings that skirted legal boundaries, shared meals with Seoyeon in the compound's beautiful dining room, and spent evenings reading or watching movies in her private sitting area. Seoyeon was proving to be exactly what Maya had hoped for in a friend. Despite her privileged background and family circumstances, she was funny, intelligent, and genuinely interested in Maya's thoughts and opinions. They spent hours talking about everything from Korean politics to American pop culture, and Maya found herself looking forward to their conversations more than any other part of her day. But she was also learning that Seoyeon's life was far more restricted than it initially appeared. Every phone call was monitored. Every outing required advance approval and security escorts. Every social interaction was evaluated for potential business implications. Maya began to understand why Seoyeon had been so desperate for someone who would see her as a person rather than a strategic asset. 3 weeks into her new job, Maya met Seoyeon's father for the first time. Yoon Dae-ho was a compact man in his 50s, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of whatever they examined. He dressed in expensive but conservative suits and spoke in the measured tones of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. "Miss Chen," he said when Seoyeon introduced them in his office. My daughter tells me you've been very helpful with her international business requirements. Maya bowed politely, having learned the appropriate level of formality for addressing Seoyeon's father. I'm honored to be of service to your family, Mr. Yoon. He studied her for several long seconds before nodding approvingly. Seoyeon chose well. You have the intelligence to be useful and the wisdom to be discreet. It was clearly a compliment, but Maya felt like she was being evaluated as a piece of equipment rather than a human being. When they left his office, Seoyeon looked relieved. He likes you, she said as they walked toward Maya's room. That's actually very good news. Why do I feel like I just passed some kind of test I didn't know I was taking? Because you did. My father doesn't trust easily, and he's very protective of family business. The fact that he approved of you means you're safe here. Maya was learning to read the subtle implications in Seoyeon's words. Safe meant her employment was secure, but it also meant something else, that her life would be in danger if she ever betrayed the family's trust. A month after starting her job, Maya accompanied Seoyeon to Los Angeles for a week of business meetings. It was her first time traveling internationally with the family, and she was shocked by the level of security and luxury that surrounded their trip. Private jet, 5-star hotel suite, personal security team, and a schedule packed with meetings that ranged from clearly legitimate to obviously illegal. In Los Angeles, Maya met representatives from several American organizations that seemed to mirror the Yoon family's structure. She sat in conference rooms translating conversations about territorial boundaries, profit-sharing agreements, and conflict resolution strategies that had nothing to do with traditional business and everything to do with organized crime. During one particularly tense meeting, Maya watched Seoyeon negotiate with a man who was clearly angry about some territorial dispute. She switched seamlessly between languages, maintaining perfect composure while discussing topics that involved serious threats against people who had crossed organizational boundaries. That night, back in their hotel, Maya finally asked the question that had been building in her mind for weeks. Seoyeon, how deep are you in your father's business? Seoyeon was standing at the window of their suite, looking out at the Los Angeles skyline. She had changed from her business attire into comfortable pajamas, but Maya could see the tension in her shoulders. Deeper than I want to be, not as deep as he wants me to be. What does that mean? It means I've spent my entire life being trained to eventually take over parts of the organization. Languages, business strategy, negotiation, cultural awareness, all the skills my father thinks I'll need to expand operations internationally. Seoyeon turned from the window to face Maya. But I've managed to avoid the parts that would make me a true criminal, such as violence, intimidation, direct involvement in illegal activities. Seoyeon sat down on the bed next to Maya. My father has been patient with me because he values my international connections and language skills, but that patience has limits. Maya felt a cold knot forming in her stomach. What happens when you reach those limits? I'll have to choose between becoming the person he wants me to be or finding a way to escape the life he's planned for me. They sat in silence for several minutes, both understanding the implications of what Seoyeon had shared. Maya realized that her friend wasn't just trapped by luxury and family obligations. She was trapped by the genuine danger of disappointing a man who had built an empire through violence and intimidation. Is that why you hired me? Maya asked. To help you find a way out? I hired you because I was lonely and desperate for a real friend, but... Seoyeon hesitated. Maybe also because I hoped that having someone like you in my life might help me remember what normal feels like. When they returned to Seoul, Maya noticed changes in the household dynamics. Seoyeon's father had begun including her in more meetings, testing her language skills and cultural knowledge more frequently. Other family members and business associates started treating her with a level of respect that suggested her position was becoming more important than simple assistant duties. Maya also began noticing that some of their business meetings involved discussions about an upcoming arranged marriage between Seo-yeon and the son of a rival organization. The merger was being positioned as a way to consolidate power and expand territory, with Seo-yeon as the key to making the alliance work. What worried Maya most was that Seo-yeon seemed resigned to the arrangement. When Maya asked her about it, she simply said, "It's been planned since I was 15. I've had 7 years to get used to the idea." "But do you want to marry him?" "I want my father to stop looking for reasons to question my loyalty to the family." Seo-yeon's voice was carefully neutral, but Maya could hear the exhaustion underneath. "This marriage solves several problems for his organization. My personal feelings are less important than business strategy." Maya realized that her friend was slowly disappearing under the weight of family expectations and criminal obligations. The vibrant, intelligent woman who had recruited her was being replaced by someone who spoke in terms of organizational benefits and strategic advantages. 2 months into her employment, everything changed. Maya was working late in her room, preparing materials for the next day's meetings, when she heard shouting from the main house. She looked out her window and saw security personnel running toward the entrance, weapons drawn. Car doors were slamming in the driveway, and she could see the flashing lights of what appeared to be police vehicles. Her first instinct was to lock her door and wait for someone to tell her what was happening. But when she heard Seo-yeon calling her name from the hallway, she opened the door to find her friend looking more terrified than she had ever seen her. "Maya, we need to leave. Right now." "What's happening?" "Someone betrayed us. My father's organization is being raided by multiple law enforcement agencies, and they have warrants for several family members." Seo-yeon was throwing items into a bag as she spoke. "There's a car waiting in the back garden. We have maybe 5 minutes before they surround the entire compound." Maya's mind raced. "Are you under arrest?" "Not yet, but I will be if they find me here." Seo-yeon grabbed Maya's arm. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Do you trust me enough to run away with me right now, tonight, without knowing where we're going or how long we'll be gone?" Maya looked into Seo-yeon's eyes and saw desperation, terror, and something else, hope. Her friend was asking her to abandon everything for the second time in 2 months, but this time the stakes were much higher than a career change. "What about your father? Your family?" "My father will either survive this and rebuild, or he won't. But either way, I can't be here when they come looking for answers about things I've been pretending not to notice." Maya heard heavy footsteps in the main house and what sounded like doors being broken down. Time was running out. "If we leave, what happens to us?" "I don't know, but I know what happens if we stay." Maya looked around her luxurious room one final time, then grabbed her passport and the emergency cash she had hidden in her dresser drawer. "Let's go." They ran through the gardens in the darkness, avoiding security lights and moving toward a small gate that Maya had never noticed before. A nondescript sedan was waiting with its engine running, and Maya recognized the same driver who had picked her up from her apartment all those weeks ago. As they drove away from the compound, Maya saw police cars and unmarked vehicles converging on the estate. Whatever evidence law enforcement had gathered, it was enough to justify a major operation against one of Seoul's most powerful criminal organizations. "Where are we going?" Maya asked as they merged onto a highway heading toward the city. "Incheon Airport, then Tokyo. After that, I'm not sure." Seo-yeon was staring out the window at the lights of Seoul passing by, and Maya realized she was probably seeing her home for the last time. "Seo-yeon, you need to tell me the truth. How much trouble are we in?" Her friend was quiet for a long time. When she finally answered, her voice was barely above a whisper. More than I ever imagined when I asked you to work for me." Maya felt the first real wave of fear since signing her employment contract. She had thought the most dangerous part of her job would be keeping criminal secrets. She had never considered that she might end up running from the law alongside the woman who had handpicked her for reasons she was only beginning to understand. The car sped through the night toward an airport and an uncertain future, carrying two women who had started as strangers and become friends, and who were now fugitives together. The first 48 hours in Tokyo were a blur of safe houses, encrypted phone calls, and conversations in languages Maya didn't understand. Seoyeon had contacts throughout Asia, people who owed favors to her family or had business relationships that transcended legal boundaries. They moved from a cramped apartment in Shibuya to a businessman's empty office in Ginza to a small hotel in a district Maya didn't recognize. Through it all, Maya watched her friend transform into someone she had never seen before. The elegant, somewhat sheltered daughter of a crime boss disappeared, replaced by a woman who spoke in code, paid for everything in cash, and seemed to know exactly how to disappear into the shadows of a foreign city. On their third night in Tokyo, hiding in a tiny apartment above a noodle shop, Maya finally demanded answers. "Seoyeon, I need to know what's really happening. Why are we running? What did your father's organization do that was bad enough to justify this kind of police operation?" Seoyeon was sitting by the apartment's single window, watching the street below through a gap in the curtains. She had been doing that for hours, constantly alert for signs they had been found. 3 months ago, someone in my father's organization killed a prosecutor who was investigating money laundering charges. It wasn't supposed to happen. Negotiations were ongoing, and everyone expected the investigation would be quietly dropped in exchange for certain considerations. Seoyeon's voice was flat, emotionless. But someone got impatient and decided to eliminate the problem permanently. Maya felt sick. "Murder! Your family is involved in murder." "Not my family. Someone in the organization acting without authorization. But the prosecutor was popular, well-connected, and his death brought attention that my father couldn't control." Seoyeon finally turned from the window to look at Maya. "The Korean government decided to make an example of our organization. They've been building a case for months, collecting evidence, turning people who worked for us into informants." "How do you know all this?" "Because I've been getting updates from people still loyal to my father. The raids were successful. They arrested dozens of people and seized assets worth millions of dollars. My father is in custody along with most of his senior associates." Maya realized the magnitude of what had happened. "Your family's organization has been destroyed." "Effectively, yes. The people who escaped are either dead, in hiding, or trying to negotiate deals with prosecutors. The empire my father built over 30 years is gone." They sat in silence for several minutes, both processing the implications. Maya finally asked the question that had been bothering her since they fled Seoul. "Why did you bring me with you? I could have stayed in Seoul. Told the police I was just an employee who didn't know anything about illegal activities." Seoyeon was quiet for so long that Maya wondered if she was going to answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because you're the only person in my life who never wanted anything from me except friendship. And because—" She hesitated. "Because I was afraid they would hurt you to get information about me." "What kind of information?" "Where I might run, who I might contact, what I might know about hidden assets or business relationships." Seoyeon stood up and began pacing the small apartment. "Maya, there are things I know about my father's organization that could put a lot of powerful people in prison or get them killed. Information I've been carrying for years because I was supposed to be insurance, someone who could restart operations if something happened to the leadership." Maya felt a chill run through her. "You're not just a runaway daughter, you're a valuable asset that multiple groups want to control. Or eliminate, depending on what they think I might do with the information I have." The next morning, Maya woke to find Seoyeon already dressed and packed. "We need to move again. I got word that some of my father's former business partners are looking for us. They think I might try to claim territory or assets that belonged to the organization." They spent the next 2 weeks moving constantly, Tokyo to Osaka to Kyoto to cities Maya had never heard of. They changed their appearance, used fake names, and communicated only through methods Seoyeon said couldn't be traced. Maya learned more about surveillance, counter-surveillance, and urban hiding techniques than she had ever wanted to know. But she also learned more about Seoyeon than months of working together had revealed. Away from her family's compound and the expectations of organized crime royalty, Maya's friends showed intelligence, resourcefulness, and strength that had been hidden beneath years of enforced compliance. "I've been thinking," Seoyeon said one evening, as they sat in yet another anonymous hotel room, "about what comes next. Do we have options?" "More than I initially thought." Seoyeon pulled out a laptop and showed Maya a series of encrypted communications she had been receiving. "Several of my father's international contacts have reached out. They're offering protection in exchange for information about Korean operations that might affect their businesses." Maya studied the messages, recognizing names and organizations from some of the meetings she had translated. "You're talking about selling out your father's former partners." "I'm talking about survival. My father's organization is gone. Most of the people who worked for him are dead or in prison. The ones who are still free are more likely to kill me than help me." Seoyeon closed the laptop. "But I have information that's valuable to people who operated in parallel to my father's business. Information that could help them avoid the same fate. And in exchange, they'll give us new identities and protection." "Us?" Seoyeon looked at Maya with surprise. "Maya, you don't have to stay involved in this. I can arrange for you to return to Seoul or go back to California. You can resume your normal life and pretend the last few months never happened." Maya realized that despite everything they had been through, Seoyeon still saw their relationship as temporary, a professional arrangement that could be concluded when circumstances changed. "What if I don't want to go back to my normal life? Why would you want to stay in this world? It's dangerous, unpredictable, and morally complicated. You have the chance to walk away clean." Maya thought about her old life in Seoul, the tiny apartment, the part-time job, the constant financial stress, the loneliness. Then she thought about the past few months with Seoyeon, the luxury and danger, the international travel, the complex business relationships, and most importantly, the first real friendship she had found in Korea. "Maybe because this world has you in it." Seoyeon stared at her for several seconds, clearly not expecting that answer. "Maya, you don't understand what you're saying. If you stay with me, you'll never be completely safe. There will always be people who see you as a way to get to me, or who think you know too much about things that could hurt them. And if I leave, what happens to you? I'll figure it out. I always have." Maya stood up and walked to the hotel room's window, looking out at the streets of Hiroshima where they were currently hiding. She thought about the choice Seoyeon was offering: safety versus loyalty, normal life versus extraordinary friendship. "I've made my decision. Maya, I'm staying. Not because I want to be part of criminal organizations or because I enjoy running from dangerous people. I'm staying because you're my friend, and friends don't abandon each other when things get complicated." For the first time since they had fled Seoul, Seoyeon smiled genuinely. "Are you sure? Because what I'm planning next will definitely qualify as chaos." Maya laughed, surprised to find she could still do that after everything they had been through. "I think chaos might be exactly what I've been looking for my whole life." The plan Seoyeon had been developing turned out to be more sophisticated than Maya had expected. instead of simply trading information for protection, she intended to position herself as a broker between various international criminal organizations who had lost their Korean connections when her father's empire collapsed. I know which shipping routes are still secure, which officials can be trusted, which businesses are fronts and which are legitimate, Seo-yeon explained as they prepared to travel to Hong Kong. I know the strengths and weaknesses of every major organization in East Asia because I've been in meetings with all of them. You're planning to start your own criminal enterprise. I'm planning to become indispensable to existing enterprises. There's a difference. Maya was beginning to understand the full scope of what her friend had inherited beyond family wealth and social status. Seo-yeon had been given access to 30 years of organizational knowledge, relationship networks, and business intelligence that made her incredibly valuable to anyone wanting to operate in the region. And my role in this plan? Same as it's always been: cultural liaison, translator, and the one person I trust to watch my back. Their first meeting in Hong Kong was with representatives of a Taiwanese organization that had worked closely with Seo-yeon's father on shipping operations. Maya sat quietly, translating when necessary, while Seo-yeon negotiated agreements that would provide her with a percentage of profits in exchange for information about Korean regulatory patterns and law enforcement capabilities. Watching her friend work, Maya realized that Seo-yeon had been hiding extraordinary business acumen beneath years of dutiful compliance with family expectations. She was sharp, strategic, and absolutely ruthless when it came to protecting her interests. Over the following months, they established a routine that took them throughout Asia, Hong Kong to Singapore to Manila to Bangkok, meeting with organizations that valued Seo-yeon's knowledge and were willing to pay for her consulting services. Maya's role evolved from simple translation to active participation in negotiations, using her American background and international relations education to help structure agreements. They were no longer running, they were building something new. 6 months after fleeing Seoul, Maya received a phone call that changed everything again. It was from a lawyer in Los Angeles who had been trying to reach her for weeks. "Miss Chen, I represent the interests of certain parties who have been working to resolve legal complications arising from recent events in Korea. My clients would like to arrange a meeting to discuss options for resolving outstanding issues related to your current situation." Maya recognized lawyer speak when she heard it. Someone with enough power to track them down wanted to negotiate. When she told Seo-yeon about the call, her friend's reaction was immediate and decisive. "We're going to Los Angeles. It's time to stop running and start making deals from a position of strength." 3 days later, they were sitting in an office building in downtown LA, across from a team of lawyers who represented what appeared to be a consortium of American organized crime families. Maya had never imagined that such a meeting could happen in a conference room with expensive suits and legal contracts, but she was learning that modern organized crime operated very differently from movie stereotypes. The lead attorney was a woman in her 50s who spoke with the precision of someone accustomed to negotiating life and death agreements. "Miss Yoon, our clients are prepared to offer you permanent residency in the United States, new identity documentation, and ongoing financial support in exchange for exclusive consulting arrangements regarding East Asian business opportunities." Seo-yeon had prepared for this moment. "What about legal immunity for past activities? Your cooperation with certain federal investigations would result in immunity agreements covering any activities that might be considered questionable under American law." Maya realized they were discussing a witness protection arrangement disguised as a business deal. Seo-yeon would provide information about international criminal networks in exchange for legal protection and the ability to start over in America. "And what about my assistant?" Seo-yeon asked. Maya held her breath, realizing that her future was being decided by people she had never met. "Miss Chen would be included in all arrangements, assuming she's willing to accept the same obligations regarding confidentiality and cooperation." The meeting lasted 4 hours, covering details that would reshape their entire lives. When they finally walked out of the building, Maya felt like she was in a dream. So, we're going to be American citizens with new names, living in witness protection and secretly working as consultants for the FBI's Organized Crime Task Force? Maya asked as they sat in their hotel that evening. Essentially, yes. We'll help them understand international criminal networks, and they'll help us disappear from the people who want to kill us. Maya laughed. 6 months ago, I was a broke college student worried about paying rent. Now I'm going to be a federal informant with a new identity. Any regrets? Maya thought about everything they had been through, the luxury and terror, the friendship and danger, the constant uncertainty, and occasional moments of pure adventure. She thought about the life she could have had if she had never accepted Sioyon's job offer and the life she was about to build with her friend in a country that would protect them from their past. Only one. What? I regret that it took criminal organizations and federal witness protection to find the best friend I've ever had. Seoyeon smiled and raised her glass of wine. To chaos. Maya clinked her glass against Seoyeon's. To friendship that survives chaos. 2 years later, Maya Chen had become Maya Rodriguez, living in a small city in Oregon and working as a linguistics consultant for various federal agencies. Seoyeon had become Sarah Young, her business partner and roommate, who specialized in international business development for companies that needed to understand Asian markets. Their official story was that they were childhood friends who had immigrated together and built a successful consulting business. Their real story was known only to a small number of federal agents who occasionally called them for advice about international criminal investigations. Maya often thought about the day she had collided with Seoyeon on the university campus, scattering books and unknowingly changing both of their lives forever. She had been hand-picked for a job she hadn't understood, by a woman who had needed a friend more than she had needed an employee. The chaos that followed had indeed been more than either of them had expected, but it had also led to a kind of freedom that neither had ever imagined possible. The freedom to choose their own identities, build their own future, and finally live life on their own terms. Sometimes, Maya reflected, the best things in life came disguised as the most dangerous decisions, and sometimes the person who hand-picks you for chaos turns out to be exactly the person you needed to find yourself.